Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp, and I'm here with Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mangus, as well as Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon. We are live on Computer World's LinkedIn page, as well as on our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, predictions about what we're going to talk about today, please do let us know either in the comments section on LinkedIn or in the live chat on YouTube. So there's plenty of predictions to be had. WWDC, I know speculation has kind of begun. It'll probably be in June, right? So what's up with it?
That was announced.
Yeah.
It's June 6th through 10th. The keynote kicks that off at 10 a.m. on that Monday, which will be June 6th. So Monday, June 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific time is when the keynote will happen. The things we know for absolute sure are iOS, iPadOS 16, macOS 13, tvOS 16, watchOS 9. Is that it? Did I get them all?
I think that's it. Aren't they also doing it as a bit of a hybrid event this year? I mean, there's obviously the online thing, but weren't they inviting?
It's virtual, but there is a component where you can sign up to be part of like a small audience that watches it at Apple Park. They used to do that at the stores. So way back before they streamed things in 4K and we could watch it wherever we wanted, when the first Apple stores, they actually had like theaters in them, like screens, and they used to not sell tickets, but they would give away space. You know, they would have a allotted portion of space where Apple fans could get together, kind of watch it together, you know, marvel at the new stuff, talk about it. They didn't have anything on hand. Like it wasn't like watch it with us and then you can test all the new stuff. Like it was just literally just the stream, which the public didn't have. Now we can watch it, obviously. So what this seems to be is just a gathering of developers and maybe some students just to kind of have an excuse to go to Apple Park and get together. I highly doubt there's going to be any executives there. I highly doubt there's going to be any hands-on component or anything like that. Certainly not press or anything like that. It's just, you know, a fun thing for Apple fans to do. So, which they haven't been able to do now for 3 years. This is now the third straight, all digital, all online. Is that what they call it?
All virtual.
WWDC, yeah. Which is, you know, for someone like me, that doesn't really matter because I just want to read the stuff. But if you're a developer, it kind of sucks because that event is geared towards you. And you want to meet people, you want to talk to people, you want to share ideas and brainstorm and network and all those things that come with it. And they haven't been able to do that for 3 years. They're also saving a bunch of money because it's not cheap. But it's a bit of a bummer. We were hoping that maybe with, you know, pandemic things easing, but I understand the decision because if they do announce that, okay, we're going to do this, and then there's a spike or the city that it's being held in, San Jose, I think, if they have a mandate, a vaccine mandate, like it gets really difficult.
It just gets really tricky to do it that way.
So it makes sense for them to say, you know what, we're going to do one more now in September. That's their gig. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do announce invite press to the iPhone event in September, which will be the first in-person event in 3 years.
Yeah.
September 2019 was the last in-person Apple event.
Assuming, as you say, the pandemic is waning. You know, it is interesting because when you think about it, Mike, I think you make such a good point about the developers and how, you know, obviously we all watch it, even though we're not necessarily developers, but for the developers, the chance to mix and mingle. And then there are all those sessions after the keynote that used to go on for several days.
Well, they still do. They're just not, they have them all. They're just either virtually streamed or just available as a download.
Right. And what I meant, though, was you hear a lot these days about remote work and hybrid work and how people need to be in the office so they can gather around the water cooler and share tips and brainstorm and all that stuff. I don't necessarily buy that. But in this particular event, you know, this sort of thing, I actually do buy it. I think you're.
Yeah, well, I don't need to be around people, but some people do.
Well, we know you don't. But developers chat with other developers about how to make their apps better.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good thing. You know, it's a shame that they can't do that yet. I bet they get back to that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, fingers crossed. Hopefully next year this is all behind us and it's business as usual. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So obviously there's going to be, OS updates. Is there anything specific that you really want to call out that's going to be, especially interesting to any of the operating systems
Yeah,
or what?
rumors are always not so. Hardware rumors are much easier to spread
Right. Yes. I remember you
because you
saying
got to go
this.
through all these channels and
Yeah.
production and manufacturing. Software is all in house. Like Apple doesn't have to send that anywhere. So things trickle. Like we've heard, there's going to be a more tweaks to notification, which you could literally say every year. It's one of those things.
Hmm.
There are some rumors from last year that didn't come to fruition that maybe could pop up, but there's not a lot in the way of tangible rumors right now, and there probably won't be. Well, dribs and drabs.
Well,
But this is one of the few Apple events that's actually kind of fun to watch because it's really a surprise as to what Apple is going to announce.
I was just going to ask Michael, one of the things Johnny Evans has written about this a couple times for us at Computer World, and he had pointed out, I guess there was a Mark Gurman piece, a Bloomberg piece, about some new iPad multitasking interface.
Yeah,
And I know how you like to rant about iPads and the multitasking.
it needs it.
Do we know what that is? Any
No,
idea at all? What
that's literally all he said.
Okay.
And that's one of those things that you can write every year because it's not going to be wrong. There will be something Apple either adds or tweaks or changes or moves that Gurman can say, well, see, this is what I was talking about. He said it was going to be a new interface, which it is overdue. We've talked about this numerous times.
Yeah.
The iPad is still an untapped, in my mind, an untapped device.
Sure.
For so many different things that it could be doing. I mean, it's a gorgeous piece of hardware, and with the M1 chip, it's more powerful than ever, than anything, or any other tablet. I mean to say.
Yeah.
But it's still stuck with that iPhone OS interface. I know it's called iPad OS. It is the same thing. It's essentially an iPhone interface, and it needs to break free. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a developer. I know it's hard. Like we got widgets last year, and they drive me nuts because they're stuck. They're stuck in a certain spot. Like we can't move things around. And then people will say, "Well, you need to rotate it." Yeah, I understand all that. Figure it out, because I'm not a $3 trillion company. Apple is, and I feel like there's a way to do this, to get the kind of to a middle ground between the Mac and the iPhone that really makes the iPad like a super desirable device.
The question I have, I had seen a lot of discussion, and I'm sure you have too, Michael, about AR, VR, maybe Apple glasses. And it sounded like earlier in the year that maybe this might be the year where they would finally unveil either the device or maybe more about the operating system or how it would work so that developers could get busy. But then over the last month or so, it feels like the balloon, the air's come out of the balloon, and we're probably not going to get anything along those lines this year.
I don't think there's any way. There's too many problems with the supply and the production chain. And if you're going to let something go, that's the thing. You're not going to, if you got to shift resources around, it doesn't matter if it comes out this year or next year. And I think Apple's going to kick that can down the road for probably another 12 months, because it's like, if you look at the Mac now with the lockdowns in China, and now that's starting to slip. Like it's still a daily issue for a company like Apple that has to ship millions of products a day. It's a problem, and they need to focus on the products that they have announced, not the ones that they haven't announced.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was surprised to see that just this week that people ordering new Macs now are looking at delivery right around the time WWDC starts.
A couple weeks.
Early June.
Yep.
It's not 2 to 3 weeks. It's like 6 to 8 weeks. And I mean, it felt like things sort of improved a little bit, but then I guess
it did, and then it went back again.
Yeah, the lockdowns in China really screwed things up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good point. You don't want to launch a new product when you can't be sure you can deliver it. That's a shame.
Sure.
And it's also, whatever that product entails production-wise requires a whole new assembly line. Yeah. And it's just, I don't think that that's something that Apple's going to really deal with right now. I mean, now we might see more hints of it in iOS, which we've seen over the course of the last several years with AR and maps and things like that. So there will be pieces of it that will make sense once this, I think the rumor is that it's called Reality OS, which makes sense, I guess, sure.
Or Apple Reality. That's what
Something.
Mike Elton is calling it on.
Yeah. I mean, we can call it things.
They are Apple Reality.
Yeah. But I would be shocked if Apple unveils that whole platform
Sure.
at WWDC.
Sure. I mean, well, then kind of on the hardware note, obviously, like it's a developer focused event. You know, the focus is probably going to be on the operating systems, but I know in the past there have been hardware announcements, chiefly the Mac Pro. The Mac Pro is due for an Apple Silicon refresh.
The Mac Pro, correct me if I'm wrong, 2019 was the last one, I think, when they unveiled that with the Pro Display XDR.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Right. Yeah.
And then
That sounds right.
It shipped in December of that. Yeah. That's the same year. It didn't ship for a while. Before that, HomePod, 2017. We got to look at that. That didn't ship till the following February. And then there was the circular trash can Mac Pro in 2013. Also didn't ship till later in the year. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Apple releases something new. There are a lot of Macs rumored to release in 2022, and we're getting to around halfway through the year now. By the time WWDC comes, it'll be just about 6 months in. Yep. So we got that M2 chip, we got the MacBook Air, we got the Mac Pro. That's the last one of the transition. Is the high-end Mac Mini also still has Intel processors. That could get an M1 Pro. So there are machines that could announce at WWDC or, also at other times or in the fall. But there's a lot in the way of Macs that are going to come out this year, in addition to iPad Pro, iPhone 14, Apple Watch 8. None of those are going to come. I don't think, maybe iPad, but I doubt it.
Another rumor, real quick, and this is tangential, Julia, just indulge me for a second.
That's all right.
I saw something about the iPhone 14 that maybe the periscope, the long-awaited periscope lens, might now be bumped to next year.
Yeah, it is definitely bumped to next year. That's Apple's thing.
Okay.
They're not going to give you 2 camera upgrades in 1 year. That ain't happening, Ken. You're
All
getting
right.
the 48 megapixel camera, and you'll be happy with it. And next year, you'll be happy with the 20x periscope.
I'm not buying this year.
You really need to take that many zoom shots between now and 2023.
I want the periscope camera.
To zoom in,
Particularly, so Samsung started this, they call it space zoom, and it's 100x, which is absurd.
Yeah.
But their 30x zoom and 50x zoom is gotten really good over the last, I think it's been three generations.
Like 3 or 4 years, right?
2020 and 2021, 22, I believe.
Yeah.
And at first it was ridiculous. Like, it was blurry. You couldn't keep it straight, but they've gotten really good at it. And that's the thing. Apple doesn't iterate in public. Mm-hmm. So they probably had a periscope lens with the iPhone 11, but they weren't happy with it. They're not going to ship something that is wonky. Well, that's not totally true. Studio Display was a little wonky, but that's different.
Everybody's allowed one, Yeah.
So I think that'll be the big upgrade next year. But we won't talk about the iPhone 14, but there are lots of things in the iPhone 14 that are intriguing.
Sure.
Okay. We can come back to that one later.
Or 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
So I think it seems like anything hardware related it's a hard maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's solid. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Okay.
The last couple of years we've gotten nothing.
Well, when was the original? Well, not like it wasn't a physical product, but wasn't it 2020 where there was the actual Apple Silicon announcement?
The announcement. Yeah.
Okay.
That was 2020.
Yeah.
Where they said, yes, we're going to transition to Apple Silicon is what they said. We didn't know anything about the M1.
Yeah.
What they did was they gave developers an iPad Pro in a Mac Mini, basically, and said, here, work with this, get your apps up to speed, because it was based on the same architecture. But there was no indication of what it was going to be, how fast it was going to be, how the RAM worked, any of that stuff. They just announced, because developers had to be ready. You can't switch to a new chip if none of the apps are native. So they wanted to give developers enough time. That's not the issue here. At least I don't think it is with the M2 chip. Okay, it's just another one. Or the Mac Pro. The Mac Pro is interesting because it's that whole modular aspect. So we don't know how that's going to work. I would be very surprised if they offered PCIe slots, but then again, the people that they're selling to need them. So I don't really know what the Mac Pro looks like. And they gave that real kind of enticing tease at the end of the last event. John Turnus said, and that, so now the M1's finished, and that leaves us with one Mac left, the Mac Pro, but that's for another day. Like, just like really wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't worry, we got something special planned.
We
So,
haven't
Sure.
forgotten you.
yeah. So it's I can't imagine anyone's buying one now, because it's $6,000 and you're
Yeah.
locking yourself into an old outdated
We're in a
system.
cul-de-sac. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Unless
now.
you
This-
like something breaks and you absolutely
absolutely
have to have
have
something and
to.
you're a big company and it's just a write-off.
Hmm.
But otherwise, that computer, it's always been the one that everyone was like, well, that's interesting. What are they going to do there?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to get a look at that. That's the stage to do it.
Yeah, right. Because that's really
Even if it doesn't ship till December, like that's the captive audience that wants to know about that stuff.
yeah, totally. So switching back to operating systems, I think we got a good overview of like sort of what to expect. Any specific like I don't know. Do you have any? And Mike, I feel like this is primarily maybe a question for you, like wish list items on when it comes to OS upgrades. I know you guys talked about some
I got tons of
iPad,
wish list.
and I feel like
Yeah.
Ken, that's more up your alley. Differentiating iPad.
Mike, go. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
want to hear Mike's.
I want more native, more default apps to be able to switch. Right now, it's just Safari and Mail. Is it? I want music. I want podcast. I want to be able to switch the apps and not always go to Apple apps. I want way more control over my home screen. The widgets are nice. The app library is nice, but we're still stuck on that grid, which is frustrating. I want interactive widgets. Right now, they're just pictures, basically. Like before, when they were in the notification summary, which was terrible, but that interface, like there was a calculator you could tap and stuff. Like now you tap it and it goes to the app. They're just fancy shortcuts. They're fancy icons. So I want to be able to have a widget on my screen and like interact with it. Like, all right, Apple Music is a great example. The widget doesn't have a play button. Like there's no now playing. You got to click it and go into the app and then press play or pause or whatever you want to do.
I see what you
On
mean.
Android, the Apple Music widget is a functional widget. Like you can press play, pause, and skip to the next track and stuff. Always on display. I'm desperate for that. That's been a staple on Android phones for like a decade and a half. And what that is so in the lock screen, like I'll show you right now.
And is that
That's what my phone
like
looks
a chiefly
Nothing.
is an always on display? Is that chiefly software or is that like a
Yeah.
combo hardware software? Okay.
It
The
it
hardware
doesn't
would do it.
require an OLED display, but it helps a lot because if you do it with an LCD, it's going to really
Gonna burn
kill your
battery.
battery life because
Yeah.
you have to light up every single pixel.
Sure.
So they're not going to bring it to the iPhone 11, the iPhone XR, or anything before that. But iPhone 10, iPhone 10s, iPhone 10s Max, 12, 13, 11 Pro, those are all OLED screens. So what you can do with OLED is light up individual pixels. So if you're an always on display shows time, date, notifications, maybe some controls, but 85% of the screen is black, and the ones that aren't black are very dim. So what it does is it allows you to glance over at your phone and see the time. Like it's great in bed. Like I have a stand next to my bed. I look over at 6:23 in the morning and the thing's black. I gotta tap it to see the time, and it drives me nuts.
Burn your
Like,
retinas.
Do you suppose there's
People
any
argue that there's a battery life hit, and yeah, it does, a couple percent. Apple does it with Apple Watch really well without sacrificing battery life. They can do it. You know they can do it.
Do you
All right.
think
They
the
just have
concern there with the screen is that they're worried about burn-in?
There's no burden. It ain't gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
All right.
You would have to use that thing for about 5 years for it to burn in. People don't
Okay.
keep their phones that long, and it has never been an issue on an Android phone. It's not going to be an issue here. If you're really concerned, have the time flash, and bounce around. It's the only time burn-in was an issue with like plasma screens like 20 years ago. It's not a problem. There's nothing to worry about.
Dating myself here. Okay. All right.
There's no burn-in. There's no battery life hit. It's just a frustrating thing that Apple refuses to give us. And I'm looking at my phone right now on this table, and it's black, and it drives me crazy. So that is the number one thing that I want. And now I don't think they're going to bring it to iOS. I think they're going to bring it to either the iPhone 14 or iPhone 15 and make it a hardware phone thing.
Sure.
they'll put a couple extra milliamp hours in the battery and say it's the iPhone 14 feature or an iPhone, which is very frustrating. But, that's Apple's thing.
Sure.
They want you to keep buying new phones, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's their strategy.
All right. Anything really that you're dying to see, Ken, before we wrap up? I know you talked a little bit about the iPad stuff, I know.
Yeah, I think Mike sort of covered things. It's not
right.
software related, but I would still like to see 5G on some of Apple's laptops down the road. But
Yeah, that's not happening this
Okay.
year, I don't think. But yes, I think
in
once
conclusion,
so once the Apple design modem rolls out, that changes
Sure.
everything.
Okay, yeah, that
Right.
makes sense.
And
again,
I
it's not
think
software, but
that
that's
could happen. I think it's supposed to happen with next year's phone.
okay.
It'll obviously be in the iPhone first because it's more important there, and then it'll get to the iPad. And so I'm gonna throw a dart and say March 2024, we will see our first 5G Mac.
All right.
Air or
Sounds
MacBook Pro,
reasonable.
whatever it is.
Whatever
Great.
it is. Okay.
Wait,
All right.
one more feature before
Okay,
we end
all right,
this,
all right.
and I'm sure we'll have another one of these sessions before WWDC. But so Apple has a Studio Display,
Oh,
and Apple has an iPad Pro, and they work together.
Sure.
Why, when I plug in the iPad Pro to any display, it only mirrors and it cuts off the display in like a square? It is the most frustrating, horrible user experience I've ever seen. I want to be able to plug in an iPad and get a desktop-like interface.
Full
Yeah, well,
screen.
for one, a full screen, but also a different sort of interface. Like I have a Pixel Slate here. When I connect it to a keyboard or use it as a tablet, the interfaces are different. All the stuff is the same. Or Samsung has a DeX desktop thing where you can plug your phone into a USB-C,
yeah.
and you get a different interface because you're sitting at a desk. You're doing things differently. That's my number one. Well, maybe not, because I also want multiple users and stuff. But my near number one is a proper external monitor support, even if you limit it to just the iPad Pro. I think that with universal control and the things that people are doing now that you're selling a consumer display, a consumer-ish display, like that is a huge thing that's missing from the iPad.
Agreed.
All right. Good. Well, thank you both so much. I think that was a really good overview. And to your point, Mike, probably as more comes out, we will probably revisit this topic at minimum, like after it actually happens.
I mean, what else are we going to talk about between now and then?
So thank you both so much. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, you can give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can head over to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk, like the video over there, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, things that we didn't get to that are outstanding, please do let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back.